Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Why so serious? Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger. Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 651 for August 24th, 2025, and I'm JD Duran.
And I'm Brennan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. It is about to be my favorite time of the year. I'm very excited. College football is about to begin.
It's
on its way. The season is on the way.
It's on its way.
I am ready, baby. I'm ready.
I think we're both going to have good seasons this year.
Well, Michigan should have a bounce back season. I don't think they'll go any better than 8-4 or 9-3. This is a rebuild year for us. We are hoping to be contenders next season and especially in 2027.
Sure.
Penn State, on the other hand,
I think we might be 10-2.
Real good.
I mean, in fact, we could be 11-1. We could even go undefeated if we beat Ohio State.
Yep, a lot of prognosticators are predicting Penn State to not only make the playoff, but maybe get to the championship game.
Yeah.
Could foreseeable win the entire thing. It is very possible. My question for Penn State is, can James Franklin get out of his own way?
Is he
the question?
Is he going to run 2-point conversions after the first touchdown we score of the season?
Yep, who knows? You never know. Things can get unpredictable with one James Franklin. And that is a great transition to where things are going to go next on this show. Before we get to it, though, I do want to note that in the back half of this episode, we are beginning our 1999 retrospective in a way. Yeah. The actual retrospective is in 2 weeks. So if you're doing homework with us, make sure you cram all your 1999 movies in now. We are going to do that retrospective in 2 weeks' time. Next week on the show, we have a really great guest. We announced this at the end of last week, but in case you missed it, the great Julia Sermons is going to join us. She is the co-host of the 1999, the podcast.
Yes.
Appropriate as we veer into our retrospective. So she is going to help lay the groundwork for us on next week's show. For this week, we are going to be talking about the best performances from 1999. We're going to do our top five performances from that year. So no small feat in that regard as well. That'll be the back half of this episode.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to say about that. And even looking at some of the Oscar nominees from that year, we're going to have some thoughts.
Yep. I have lots of thoughts on 1999, as I'm sure many of you do. I am curious if our thoughts align with everyone else's. That will certainly be the question. We'll get to that shortly. Now, I teased a moment ago, unexpected things that may happen. James Franklin, for those unfamiliar, he is the head coach for Brennan Cassidy's Penn State Nittany Lions.
Correct.
The reputation of James Franklin is that he is a great football coach, but he does get in his way. He makes some of the most boneheaded in-game decisions. The guy can recruit. He has built a great program, but my God, does he step on his own toes?
He's a great coach when he relies on his coordinators and his other teammates. That's really when he's at his best. He's a great team coach, but he's not always a great head coach, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. So as a result, he and his team have become unpredictable. And there are things that make you scratch your head. I say that to say this. Why does Netflix not put more movies in the box office, in theaters? Now, I get it. I get it. This is an age-old question. This is something that we have talked about and debated for 15 years now. This is nothing new. However, it is worth bringing up here once again because over the weekend, K-Pop Demon Hunters, a movie I remind you has been on their platform for 2 months. 2 months has a sing-along. So to get even more specific with it, a sing-along version of it hits theaters over the weekend and wins the box office. Now, granted, it wasn't going up against a Weapons in its initial weekend. It wasn't going up against a Marvel movie or a Jurassic World.
Yeah.
The competition wasn't there, but still $18 million in just 1,700 theaters, mind you. So it wasn't even a wide release. Weapons, for example, hit 3,600 theaters. So more than double what K-Pop Demon Hunters did. And everyone I talked to, including my son Sam and my wife who went to see this iteration of K-Pop Demon Hunters in theaters, everyone to a T has stated my showing was sold out. It was sold out. Even though Netflix won the box office weekend, they left money on the table. If they would have expanded it to 3,600 theaters, they perhaps could have made upwards of $50 million this weekend.
Yeah.
But decided against it. And it begs the question once again, now that we have this kind of evidence, Netflix has never won the box office because obviously when they do put movies in theaters, they famously are muted. They don't go to too many theaters.
It's just to qualify for certain awards runs. So we'll see movies like Roma or The Irishman play in a limited run just to qualify for like the Academy Awards is and really all they tend to do.
And those two, and there are occasions where it goes beyond New York, LA for awards purposes.
Oh, yeah.
They do put a lot of movies in theaters for awards purposes, to be fair, but it's usually
they give
in New
them
York.
official limited releases is what they tend to do. It might not be it might not be a long limited release. It might last for like 2 weeks or something like that, but it will expand outside of just LA and New York, to your point.
Exactly. So obviously they have never been in competition for the box office. This being their first victory at the box office, I do think is notable, especially given that K-Pop Demon Hunters has introduced itself as perhaps the front runner for best animated film now and perhaps best original song. Because the other thing to note here, even though we are a movie podcast, this film, its soundtrack has 3 songs, right now in the top 10 on Billboard.
Yeah,
that has never happened before.
That is
for
huge.
A movie soundtrack.
I mean, the most that we can say about a movie soundtrack hitting some type of goal like that is when Oh Brother Where Art Thou won Album of the Year at the Grammys or something like that.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the more noteworthy examples. But this is a huge deal for a movie like this to have this kind of hit making status.
Absolutely. So again, I go back to, and I know that this is treaded territory, but still, is Netflix, or how much money is Netflix leaving on the table by not putting their movies in theaters first before the movie's going straight to Netflix?
I do wonder, with a movie like this, what would have been different, if anything, if it did go to theaters first, as opposed to garnering a following on Netflix before it goes to theaters. So I do wonder if a movie like this is kind of a special case scenario in some ways. It's possible that maybe it would not have been as big of a hit, or would not have gotten much attention, or it may not have had that Elemental like run a few years ago in theaters. It very much may have. But maybe the fact that it was available for families to watch in the comfort of their own homes first, that may have given it the edge. But it does still beg the question, why didn't they capitalize on that popularity? Because I think, to your point, there was still money left on the table that they could have gotten their grubby hands on by expanding this out even further than just what was essentially a weekend special event, was how this was basically thrown out into theaters. And I think there's more that could have been done to capitalize on that, to maybe even further prove the point that Netflix has content that is theater worthy. So it's kind of it kind of has different ends of this conversational spectrum, but I do think there is a missed opportunity regardless of the special case here.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, there is a bit of a duality here because if this film goes to theaters first, does it have the same kind of hype and buzz behind it?
Right.
How much money does it make comparatively to the very much hyped weekend that it just had? That is hard to answer because when the film first came out, nobody really knew about it.
Right.
It's one of those animated films that dropped on Netflix, and over the course of days and perhaps the next week or two afterwards, then it started to create some of that virality that we've seen.
Right.
However, if they were going to do a proper release, they would, in theory, put some marketing dollars behind it. You drop trailers. You drop maybe some of the songs early, even out of context, or at least you showcase some of it in the marketing, right?
Yeah.
Because that has been what's drawn people to this film.
Well,
the soundtrack, admittedly, is a banger. It is really fantastic.
It's catchy. And
absolutely.
Sorry to cut you off, but to your point there, I think there was a lot of room for Netflix to take advantage of some existing TikTok trends surrounding this movie. In a way, it could have been almost like a Barbenheimer-like thing where there was potentially a grassroots marketing campaign already kind of there for them to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. Because if they just put it in theaters in a Netflix way where there's no marketing behind it, then it probably doesn't do well. It flops. And who knows, maybe it garners the same audience on Netflix. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if they do a proper marketing push for this movie, I think this last weekend and over the course of the last 2 months, it's been indicative that people would have been drawn to this film.
Agreed.
And maybe you're sitting on an animated film that renders $500 million, which would have been huge. This could have been one of the biggest releases of the year, at least here in the United States, in terms of animated film or maybe just film in general.
That potentially
if it had that proper marketing behind it.
That potentially changes the game a little bit for movies that go to streaming first, that develop a bit of a following, and then they go to theaters a few months later. Because if, to your point, K-pop Demon Hunters garnered that attention, that virality on Netflix, then it goes to theaters like we see here, but it's actually an official run in theaters for a few weeks, and then becomes a $500 million hit because of its streaming potential that led to that. That's a very interesting conversational point because I don't think I've ever seen something like that before. A movie that becomes a hit because it came out early online.
And that is essentially the marketing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way to gauge people's interest and should we put this in theaters? And K-pop Demon Hunters was garnering a lot of interest when it was on Netflix for the film itself and also its soundtrack, of course. People have been listening to it nonstop. So that is essentially your marketing there. And you're not having to put a lot of conventional dollars into trailers or ad spots on television, whatever the case may be.
Right.
That is essentially like your platform is your marketing. Then you can put it in the theaters. Maybe that's something we do see more of given the success of this film and that formula. But also this is a one weekend event. I wonder how much money this film would have made if it went to more than 1,700 theaters. What if we did see it in 3,600 theaters?
Yeah.
And to your point a second ago, what if this plays in theaters for another 3 weeks?
Yeah.
How much money does it render?
Yeah. Was it just the fact that it was a special weekend event that led to its box office success? Was that part of the knowledge of people going into it?
This is the weekend. You got to go. You got to go right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that could be part of it too. I do also wonder, and this is me speaking ignorantly because I don't know the answer to this, because this movie was distributed by Netflix, but it was produced by Sony Pictures Animation, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if there was any type of agreement that limited what type of theatrical run this could be distributed in, given how it was made. I don't know if there were any circumstances there, so I'm, pleading ignorance. But it is something that I did at least want to acknowledge that maybe there were other circumstances that only allowed this movie to be released in this way for a very short period of time as a special event. I don't know. Maybe that was also the case too.
That is an interesting point. Sony being the production company here, maybe they were pushing the buttons over there at Netflix. Hey, let's put this in theaters. Let's make some money. That relationship could have been a driving factor as well. I hadn't really thought about that, but it does make a lot of sense. But still, I do wonder if Netflix, generally, broadly speaking, is looking at this and perhaps debating how they could take advantage of doing something like this further down the road.
Yeah.
Because the budget behind this wasn't small. I believe it was around $100 million.
Yeah.
But that was Sony producing this film.
Right.
So presumably Netflix bought it for more than that, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so.
Whatever that deal was behind the scenes.
And
again, I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know what any of that looks like.
Yeah, I don't either.
But you got to wonder, and this is all hindsight, obviously. But I think we are looking at a film that if it went to theaters and had proper marketing, it probably would have made $500 million.
Yeah, I do think regardless of how well this could have done, we're obviously talking a lot of hypotheticals here, right?
Yeah.
But I do think regardless of how we look at this, Netflix did leave a little bit of money on the table given how this was released. I think we can at least agree on that. And I think we can also agree on is that there is a lot of potential for this situation as it is to maybe create a new trend as how popular movies on streaming platforms eventually get further theatrical releases as some sort of post-like event for them. And maybe those types of release strategies are going to be investigated further as future and further money grabs for certain movies, which I'm not really opposed to as I think about it, because at least it does still continue to push the importance of the theatrical experience. It's just done so in a very different way that kind of allows it to coexist with the streaming experience simultaneously, which I never thought I would ever say. But I think this is the first time I've seen maybe some potential partnership between streaming and theaters kind of finding a way to work together. I'm not necessarily advocating for that all the time, but I think it's kind of an interesting compromise in some ways if more streaming platforms and production companies find ways to coexist, right? I think there's a possibility there.
I agree, and I would love to see that. Obviously, many of our listeners would love to see that because there are some great films on Netflix. We've talked about this forever. We all know this. You get the Gray Mans of the world, but they also have the Irishmen and the Romas and the K-pop Demon Hunters that are great to see in a theater. And I don't know what that middle ground is for Netflix. Some of those movies, the Gray Mans of the world, probably should just live on Netflix alone exclusively. I think those are fine.
That's the new made-for-TV movie, right? Remember how we grew up watching movies that were made for TBS or TNT? They were strictly designed to be aired on those channels. That's essentially what a movie like The Gray Man is. The only difference is that instead of TNT, it's Netflix, right? That's basically what that is.
Exactly. But they do have some movies on their platform that would do very, very well theatrically.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if this film does anything to provoke them to consider that more. Because I would love to see more of their movies go to theaters.
Me too.
They have the upcoming Ethan Hawke movie, I believe. Or Richard Linklater.
Oh, Blue Moon, is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, that might be the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because Linklater has 2 movies coming out this year. I think that's the one that comes out first.
Yeah, I think that's the one I believe was top of mind for me.
Okay.
I would love to see that in a theater, selfishly speaking.
Later, of course we would.
And maybe our cinephile dome is so small comparatively that it's laughable from Netflix's perspective. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little different. I don't know if the majority of people in the country share that same enthusiasm that we
might
do.
be a bad example, but the thing is, and again, I know we've talked about this. Everybody has talked about this forever, for over the last 15 years, because they are such a key force as to the world we're living in now in terms of film and the business of Hollywood. And I wonder if this success, they've never tasted this success before. Right. Does it do anything? Is it good enough that they start to reconsider what the box office may mean for them? And if it does, there are going to be huge ramifications, I think.
I you know me, JD, I'm usually a bit of a pessimist when it comes to good things happening in movies, and that I always know or think Hollywood's going to learn the wrong lessons from it, right? I actually think something good will potentially come from this. I don't know if it's going to necessarily be what we're talking about specifically, but I think this situation that we're seeing with K-pop Demon Hunters is going to be looked at and studied pretty intensely, at least for the short period right now, to see what streaming platforms can do to boost revenue for movies or TV shows or whatever that might be hits on their respective platforms first, and how they can almost treat the theatrical experience like a second release, in the same ways that when we were kids, it went to theaters first, and then you kind of had a second release when it went to DVD or rentals, right? That was kind of a second release for many movies, and it added to the revenue stream, especially for those that worked on those movies, because that came with added benefits of special features, another disc of like interviews and things like that, right? Like that was kind of part of the charm. So maybe we're in a day and age where the reverse happens. It starts off on a streaming platform, and then the second release is in theaters as like this communal celebratory experience for it. Like that's kind of interesting, actually.
It is, and I could see some version of that moving forward. I'm curious. I'm real curious. I know this is treaded territory, but this we've never seen before.
I know.
Perhaps it moves the needle for Netflix a little bit. I don't know. I the optimist in me wants to say yes, that is going to be the case. And I think I'm really wanting this because I do think that the ramifications, the trickle effect would be quite massive if they decide, hey, we're going to put these movies in theaters. Whether they do that on the front end, we're going to put this in theaters, much like we see movies going straight to Amazon these days. Sometimes a movie is in the theaters for 2 weeks. The Bad Guys 2 was in theaters for like 2 or 3 weeks, and now it's already available digitally.
That was a failure. What a failure. But again, maybe that's one that could have garnered a similar like virality if it went. And I think if anything, this might be more noticeable with family films that are intended for kids, because that is often, and maybe you could speak to this, that is often the hardest to go and prioritize a theater experience for first for families, right? It's easier for you and I to go to the theaters by ourselves to see what we want to see. But to organize an experience with your family, as great as that is, that takes time, especially when you have the comfort of your own home to experience it in. There is more of a ease with that. There's a convenience to that. So that a movie like The Bad Guys 2 may have actually had more attention if it just went to streaming first. And I think that the point I'm making is that I think this maybe is more likely for family films. I could feel that being the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's from a Martin Scorsese or a Christopher Nolan, you put something like The Irishman or Killers of the Flower Moon, maybe that hits a platform and it gets a certain response, and so then you decide to put that into theaters as well.
It gets the other audience, but it's just in a very similar way, but it's just a very different demographic.
But generally, I do think you're right there. And while I do want to see some version of, again, whether it's on the front end, and I guess depending on the marketing dollars, it might be a win-win no matter what, because again, worst case, you just drop it on Netflix. If it flops its opening weekend, all right, no sweat off our brow. It's available on Netflix. Go watch it. That was kind of the whole idea to begin with.
Yeah, kind of a test run.
Yeah, a little bit of a test run. Or you do it in a K-pop way where it plays for a month. It's great. Has all this virality. Now we put it in the theaters for 3 weeks and see how that goes. That could certainly be the case as well. My one worry, and I do think this is a major worry, is that K-pop is such a singular experience because, again, so much of this momentous thrust is because the music is really great. When you have 3 songs in the top 10,
that's a good point.
That gives way for something like a sing-along version of this to hit theaters.
That's a
Most
great
animated
point.
films are not going to have that caveat. The Bad Guys 2, for example, if that simply hit Netflix first, what incentive is there to put that in theaters, even if people loved it, even if it had all this virality behind it for whatever reason, and people loved it, it's the #1 movie on Netflix right now, would people also go see that in theaters, the same exact thing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a great point because the success of K-pop Demon Hunters, it's successful through 2 mediums, not just one. It is both a cinematic hit and a music hit, a soundtrack hit.
Yeah.
So it has 2 levels of success, 2 markets of success, as opposed to just being a successful movie. It has more to it than that. That's a great point.
And the movie in theaters is marketed as another version, essentially, right? Because it's a sing-along version of it.
A way of those 2 mediums coming together to celebrate both the movie and the music of it.
So it's not exactly, even though it is the same movie, it might feel like a different experience, even though it's the same experience.
That's a great point.
I just don't know if your normal animated films that have like a high key musical component, if it'll have the same draw, but maybe it will. I don't know, but it
depends on the movie maybe, but I think you make a great point that K-pop Demon Hunters certainly a special case, just given the type of movie that it is. The fact that it is a musical, right? It has two different levels of success to work with that are going to increase its marketing potential. So like that is a great point that you made.
Yeah, and it might just depend on the movie and what it is. In the context of awards, that's another thing, right? Where maybe people watch a Flow on Netflix, but because it's nominated for Oscars, maybe they want to go see something like that in theaters as well.
Yeah.
There are obviously other circumstances where this could play, but if Netflix does not take this seriously in any way, shape, or form, which again is my concern that this won't move the needle at all, and I think it's going to be because of the singularity of what K-pop is, and that you could turn it into its own event weekend that is the sing-along that you can't just do for any other movie.
No, I think that's a great point. It's funny because we're talking about this and the potential positive trend that could come from this. We would be having a completely different conversation if the success was around, I don't know, the Electric State, for instance, right?
Yeah.
This would be a very different conversation where we would be pissed off that people are going to see a crummy movie like that. And then all of a sudden Netflix gets the wrong idea.
Maybe, but the thing with the Electric State, if that was the context here instead of K-pop Demon Hunters, I would again try to stay optimistic in the sense that, okay, this movie is bad and people are making a big fuss out of it. But if this provokes Netflix to do more down the road, then my hope is that the next one is the good movie.
Well, unless that's when we just get the red notices and the gray man's going to theaters, and that's the lesson that they learn. And then they don't work, and it's like, well, we're back to square one, status quo.
then that would be the concern. Yeah. That's always the concern.
That's always the concern.
I think we noted this last week or 2 weeks ago. These studio executives don't know how to run movie studios. They don't.
No, they know how to run
anything about movies.
They know the numbers, but they don't know the art.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, before we get to the top 5, I also want to note this as well. Marvel Phase 4. Let's talk about Marvel Phase 4 for a quick second.
Phase 4?
A lot of people did not like Marvel Phase 4. It completely reshifted the perspective of how people see the Marvel Cinematic Universe and where it's going to go. One of those movies that came out in Phase 4 that, speaking of moving the needle, did not move the needle at all for Marvel was Eternals.
Yeah, the good one of Phase 4, if you ask me.
Great Chloe Zhao movie. And look, Chloe Zhao's got a new movie this year. I am very excited for it. It looks fantastic.
Those images look awesome. It looks like a Chloe Zhao movie.
Yes, it does.
Hamnet, baby.
And look, say what you will about Eternals. Brendan, you and I are simply on an island here, and we have to accept that.
I dig that movie so much.
Most people do not like this movie. I love it. I think it is great. I think it is borderline top tier.
It is so interesting. Such an interesting movie.
It is very interesting, and I think it deserved so much more than it got. And I wanted to bring this up because there was an interview circulating last week with Kumail Nanjiani, and he was talking about how he ended up having to go to therapy as a result of its failure because he signed up for this, and apparently he had signed up, like his character was signed up to be in 6 movies and a video game. And so he expected that over the next decade, he would be in all of these Marvel movies. And then none of that happened. No more movies. Oh, yeah. Eternals are, they're going to end up treating Eternals like they did The Incredible Hulk all those years ago.
It's unfortunate. I like the bastard children of the MCU. I like these children.
Which, look, here's sorry, I know.
No, keep going.
Before you go, here's the good news. That means in, what is it? This is 2025. That came out in 2009. So we'll call it 2043 when Marvel gets to Phase 7 or wherever they're at.
By that point, it'll be,
will just come back like we just saw earlier this year with Brave New World, where we finally get a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. So Eternals will be fine. Eternals, they'll come back in 15 years.
In a way, we also got a sequel to Eternals in that movie too. So as much as we don't, I mean, we both acknowledge that Brave New World, not a very good movie, and I'm honestly liking it a bit less as time goes on. Even though you and I didn't hate it when it came out, but I think that's because we got caught up in the hype that we finally got a Marvel movie that was willing to acknowledge and love the bastard children of the MCU. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I do feel bad for Kumail Nanjiani, and I think if anything, the thing that really hurt the movie and probably what hurt his career as a result of that, it was the hype surrounding the movie before it even came out. And I honestly kind of blame the execs at Marvel for that, because there was a lot of talk internally, especially from Kevin Feige, that they were gearing up to submit Eternals as a potential Best Picture nominee for the Oscars. They were, at least I think I recall seeing reports about those internal conversations happening, that they felt like they had something really special on their hands. And when it doesn't live up to that potential, of course, that's going to be damaging psychologically to those who are involved, right?
Yeah.
And I think, if anything, studio execs who are not filmmakers need to learn to sometimes play a bit coy when it comes to things that they have. They might think they have a potential hit on their hands, but let's not sell that message until the movie sells the message for them. And I think that was really unfortunate, given that the movie itself was just not what people wanted to see. And it is a flawed movie. It is a very flawed movie. But it's also a very interesting movie. You and I seem to think so. And I really love it for those reasons. But it was certainly not the kind of movie that Marvel was ready to embrace and really push for in that way. And I think the internal hype that then became external hype kind of hurt it additionally to just being a movie that people weren't ready for in general.
Yeah, and I was as disappointed. I could only imagine what Kumail and others that were involved with that film, what they were thinking, because Chloe Zhao seemed as if she was doing something unique and interesting. And I do think she did something very unique and interesting with that movie.
I agree.
But clearly, again, not a lot of other people saw it that way. And I don't know, maybe people were just wanting more of the same. I don't really know. But I do like that film thrives in how unconventional it is. And I love it for those reasons. And like, it is weird that the MCU was just pretending that movie doesn't exist, given the massive consequences of it and who those characters are. They play such significant roles in the MCU that just to pretend they don't exist is hysterical to me.
I really wonder if we'll get any acknowledgement of what happens there in either Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars. I feel like we won't, because they have so many other things that they need to tie up, so many other loose ends that they need to tie up. And many of these other loose ends that we haven't seen any acknowledgement of do somehow pertain to the multiverse. So I feel like we're going to see some of those loose ends addressed, but not Eternals. I feel like Eternals and this one I'm actually okay with if we don't see again. The whole post-credit stinger for Thor Love and Thunder about Hercules, right? That one, I think that one kind of lives in its own weird bubble that I don't think we'll really ever see again. But it is unfortunate that Eternals became kind of collateral damage for what was going wrong with the MCU at that point.
I mean, I think they are doing another Thor movie. At least that was on the table. And if they end up doing another Thor movie, then I'm sure Hercules will be involved in some way. Because I think the discussion was that it was going to have a new director and a new vision and all that sort of stuff. I'm trying to recall the details. But
Kenneth Branagh. Bring back Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love that.
that is what I want.
Absolutely. That'd be amazing.
I feel like I'm the only one who thinks of the 4 Thor movies. If I had to rank the 4 Thor movies, it's actually release order for me.
Yeah, I'm probably there with you. Although I'd have to revisit too. I don't love Ragnarok, but I don't know if it's worse than Thor 2. I don't know.
I
they
think
both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses for me. So
I think it's better. And I think it's better and worse than Thor: The Dark World, Ragnarok specifically. There are elements of it that are among the best things that we've seen in a Thor movie, and then it has other elements that are honestly at the Love and Thunder level for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, its humor still works for me. That was before we had been out Taika Waititi'd.
When Taika got in his own way.
Yeah, like I still think the humor of that film works, but as a Marvel movie, as an action movie, it is really, really bad.
It's ugly. Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah, and like Thor 2 has, like the Dark World has its blemishes for sure as well. But I also think it has some underrated high moments.
I agree.
That I really love as well. So anyway, I'm getting down a tangent here. I didn't even mean to talk about Thor.
I brought up Kenneth Branagh, and that's exactly how we fall down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I simply wanted to bring up Eternals to say that I very much feel for Kumail Nanjiani. And I do think it is disheartening that Marvel is treating them the same way that they did The Incredible Hulk for all those years.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the movie didn't perform the way you wanted to. It was never going to get a Best Picture nomination. Maybe it was a little bit overhyped from your perspective, but why throw away these characters? These are still great characters that you can utilize in your movies. That
this is great.
To me is disappointing.
there's great material here for when they close the multiverse, right? I think that's an easy way to bring these characters back without having the confines of this multiversal thing surrounding it. Because I think the Eternals exist in a better space, or they exist in a universe that let me say it this way. I think they're better served in a universe that doesn't feel as convoluted. I think they're better taken advantage of in a more streamlined way. And maybe as they close out this multiversal saga, which I feel like is going to be kind of a soft reboot of sorts, I still think there's potential room for the Eternals and what they were going for.
I hope they come back. I do.
Yeah.
I hope they come back. I loved them. Two quick notes here real fast before we move on. One, M. Night Shyamalan has a new movie coming out.
Yeah, Remain, I think it's called.
Yes. And I don't know if you know anything about this movie.
Very little. And I don't really want to know much about it because that's what makes his movies fun.
Okay. Well, I'm going to reveal this because I think it is very funny. So he was doing a Q&A recently, and they were talking about this movie. And he noted that it was going to be shot on VistaVision, which I think is interesting in and of itself. But here is the note that garnered my interest. This movie is being described as a supernatural romantic thriller. Okay, that sounds like something M. Night would do.
Yeah, I think we knew that already. I think that was sort of part of the the marketing for it already.
Here's what I did not know, though. The script for this is an original story co-created by one M. Night Shyamalan. Okay, he writes all of his movies. That makes sense. And also Nicholas Sparks.
Oh, that I did know. That I did know.
Nicholas Sparks.
I did
had
know
no
that.
idea.
Yeah. That, okay. No, I did know that.
The funniest thing I have read all year.
That I did know. And honestly, I kind of see the connection.
I don't know if I do, but that's what makes it funny to me. And I'm not necessarily saying that as a bad thing, but I don't know if I ever would have considered M. Night Shyamalan and Nicholas Sparks together in the same sentence.
Well,
together.
I think of it this way, because when I think of early M. Night Shyamalan, and you and I are people that love M. Night Shyamalan, especially his earlier films, and even to an extent, a lot of his later films. I think he's found a new rhythm that is really interesting, and he makes movies that he wants to make, and I respect that for him. But when you look at his earlier films like Signs and The Village, and even Unbreakable, The Sixth Sense as well, they do have sort of a heightened drama to them. Some may call them a little melodramatic, at least in tone, but I actually think that's what makes those movies so profoundly sincere and emotional. This is something that Nicholas Sparks is also kind of known for, at least his movie adaptations are. So that's where I kind of see the merriment. So if there's anyone out there who's going to maybe rightfully tackle the type of Nicholas Sparks thing, I kind of see Shyamalan being that person in a way.
That's really interesting. I haven't really considered that, but here's where I do see a connection between the two. Do you recall the last movie based off of a Nicholas Sparks novel? Do you remember when that was?
Oh gosh, wasn't that like in 2016 or something like that? It was like 10 years ago.
It was 2016.
Oh wow, that was just a guess. What was that? Was that Dear John?
No, that was The Choice. Dear John came out in 2010.
Okay.
The Lucky One in 2012. Safe Haven, one of my wife's favorite films from that year, 2013. The Best of Me, which has one of my favorite surprise moments in a movie. There's a moment in that film that really caught me off guard and choked me up, and I was completely disengaged with the film. Weird movie, but that's in 2014. The Longest Ride in 2015, and The Choice in 2016.
The Choice is one of my wife's favorites.
Can we think of that was taken away from Hollywood and needed a bit of a reboot?
Oh, that is a great point, JD.
Can we think of in this equation that took some time off, gathered themselves, and had a bit of a revitalization?
Are these two artists that we would like to see
that is M. Night
remain?
Shyamalan, and he understands perhaps what Nicholas Sparks is going through, because The Longest Ride, The Choice, The Best of Me, those films did not do all that well, and Hollywood gave up on one Nicholas Sparks. It has been a decade since he's been involved in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And M. Night working with Nicholas Sparks, given that journey, I think is quite incredible.
It's kind of charming.
I love that irony. And
it's kind of charming.
Maybe not accidental. Maybe he saw
I don't think so.
What Nicholas Sparks was going through and said, hey, look, I can relate to that. I've been there. I've experienced that. And decided, you know what? Let's work together. Maybe we can come out of this together.
Let's find ways for both of us to remain in the Hollywood sphere.
Exactly. I like that. Yeah.
I will say, regardless of the circumstances of how they got together, I think there's also something generally exciting about two artists getting together for a project whose sensibilities are very different from each other. Because that usually leads to something that you haven't really seen before. It might not always work, but it's usually the sign of something, I don't want to say innovative, but something kind of new, something kind of fresh, a bit of a bold take on something. And that's the thing that has me excited, because you would never have guessed that these two people would work together on any type of project. And I find that generally intriguing. Like, just that idea alone is what has me really excited.
Yep. I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see what that is. Last note, and then we will get to our top 5. Last week on the show, I talked in depth about a performance that I am championing for the rest of this award season. And guess what, Brendan? I think someone was listening to our episode and realizing, you know what? Maybe we do have an Oscar nominated, maybe Oscar winning performance on our hands. Mm-hmm. So guess what? Good Boy, starring the wonderful, amazing Good Boy Indy, is moving to October 3rd. That film is moving to October 3rd, right in the smack middle of award season. I do not think that is accidental or a coincidence either. I think they heard what we said last week and decided, you know what? We are going to push Indy for an Oscar nomination, and I thank you. Just saying, maybe we had something to do with that.
I'm just going to simply say this. There's a first time for everything.
There is a first time for everything. Absolutely. We just talked about that with Netflix winning the box office. Who would have ever have guessed that they would have won the weekend?
Yeah.
Well, it happened.
Well,
it happened.
And if it's not the Academy that jumps on this, it'll at least be maybe the Golden Globes or something like that. Which, as of late, I feel like the Golden Globes have been the more innovative award show as far as who the nominees are. So, if anything, I could see that happening, or maybe the Critics' Choice Awards or something like that honoring Indy. I could see that happening before the Academy. But needless to say, I think you're right that this movie moving to where it is, there's going to be potential hype that this is a Shudder production, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. I think they're going to try and capitalize on that.
Shudder, if you're listening, get those marketing dollars ready. We're going to need to see Indy on all the red carpets. Let's do this. Let's get him an Oscar nomination. Let's go.
You know what really helped it inadvertently, I think? Who was the dog from Anatomy of a Fall?
Oh, yes. That got a lot of buzz.
That got a lot of buzz. Yeah, I think that helped. I forget the name of that dog. We'll have to look that up. But this dog was in attendance at the Academy Awards, wasn't?
That's true. And there was some great virality around him too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to look it up here. Snoop.
That's it.
Was the name of the dog.
That's it. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, and who doesn't love Snoop?
What a name. What an adorable name.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So yeah, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see Indy get his Oscar nomination now that the movie has moved to October 3rd, right in the middle of award season.
Yeah, like I said, first time for everything.
All right, Brennan, let's talk about coffee. I love it. I need it. It is.
What do you think's been in this thing this whole time?
Yes. I had a cup just before we got on here, And so I feel good and energized. I won't be able to sleep tonight, but at least we'll have fun on the show.
Hey, sacrifices have to be made.
Exactly. And I needed the coffee because over the weekend, and I've been telling my oldest, Sam, that we are going to stay up late. He's been asking to stay up late and play video games. And
kind of like a father-son sleepover.
Yeah, I mean, one of those memories from college that I always loved is that me and my friends, we would get together and we would play Call of Duty, and we would play the campaign like all the way through, like 6-7 hours, however long it took. You stay up, you start at 8 and you end up at 2-3 in the morning, however long it takes.
Wow.
And you just kind of take turns doing the campaign.
We clearly came from different backgrounds because you were doing that with Call of Duty. I was doing the same thing with my friends, but it was Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo 64. Yeah. We had major tournaments and everything.
Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty was getting real big as I was transitioning into college. So that's what we would do. And so I told Sam, let's do that. So I let him pick the Call of Duty game, and he ended up going with Call of Duty 2, the first one. From 2009, I think.
Okay. I think the important question is, did he pick the flavor of coffee cult that you'd be drinking to keep you awake?
He did not. He didn't pick that flavor of coffee, but we stayed up late. It was like 2:00 in the morning when we got done. It was a great time. So then all day today, I've been garbling down coffee like it is air. And I've been drinking Coffee Cult and thriving because of it. And I also had a hockey game today. So thanks, Coffee Cult, for keeping me going.
Good job.
It's been incredible. If you need awesome coffee, Coffee Cult is where you got to go. Coffeecult.com, coffee with a K, cult with a A. They only source specialty grade coffee. So you're not getting your store-bought coffee here. This is gourmet coffee. It is fantastic. It is worth the price of admission. It is a little bit pricier than your store-bought coffee because we're talking about gourmet. So
the best of the best.
It's great stuff.
Ethically sourced.
Ethically sourced, of course.
They make sure to look at farms that are run not just ethically, but also that they look at female-run farms as well. So it's really nice to see that as well, so they don't get forgotten.
Exactly, and with the fall on the horizon, the weather is going to change soon. So be sure to get stocked up on your favorite coffee, and use our code at checkout, and you'll get 15% off. It is one of the best deals they have. That code is ISF25. Again, that code is ISF25. Use that at checkout. You get 15% off. One of the best deals they have, coffeecult.com, and we thank them for their support. All right, Brennan, let's talk about merchandise. Let's talk about the InSession Film Store.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the stuff on our store could probably use a boost, right?
It could use a boost. I think so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, you set me up for success with that one. Thank you.
If you go to the InSession Film Store, well, how do you do that? There's actually a couple of ways you can do that. InSessionFilm.com/store. You can check out a lot of our merch there. Or you can go directly to the source. That is dashery.InSessionFilm.com. And there you'll see all of our t-shirts that we have available. Whether it be this one that Brendan was alluding to here, I could use a boost, which is one of my favorite.
I think it's one of our best ones. Yeah, I think it really is.
But we have other shirts with our logo on them. We have we have an awards themed one. We got a midnight special one. We got a Star Wars. We have all kinds of fun things up there. So
absolutely.
So go to InSessionFilm.com/store. Again, that's one of the best ways to check out all of our great stuff there. Or InSessionFilm.dashery.com. And either way, you can check out all that stuff there. And if you go to the Dashery site, I have lowered the price a little bit more than what is, what they suggest or what the normal is, I guess. So you can get them a little bit lower price there. But if you get an InSession Film, sure, it obviously goes back into supporting us, and all the money we get goes directly into making sure this happens each and every week and keeping the website running and all that sort of stuff. So we really do appreciate people that want to check that out. Again, InSessionFilm.com/store, or again, InSessionFilm.dashery.com. Either way, you can see all that stuff there, and we thank you for your support. All right, let's go ahead and move on to this week's top 5. We are going to be talking about our top 5 performances from the year 1999 as we prepare for our 1999 retrospective in 2 weeks' time. So I'm very, very excited for this. Did you have any sort of criteria that you formulated for your list here?
No.
Is this just going to be 5 performances from Magnolia? Is that all we're doing? I'm curious.
I mean,
where did you go here?
I'll reveal this now. I don't have anyone from Magnolia in my top 5. And that's not to knock Magnolia. I do think, spoiler alert, it's one of the best movies of the year.
You're just so wrong, Brendan. So wrong.
There were 5 performances that stuck out for me, and I think it mostly just comes down to how singular they are in their respective films. So much of what makes Magnolia so great as a performance piece is how these performances interlock with one another. So it's, in a way, it's really hard for me to pick 1 or even 2 best performances from Magnolia without feeling like I'm negating someone else doing such great work that made that performance so good. You know what I mean? It's always hard with an ensemble piece like that.
No, I hear you. I mean, in the spirit of indie, I wanted to include Stuart Little on this list. That was part of my criteria. Or perhaps the shark from Deep Blue Sea. Man, menacing performance.
I love that shark. But no, to your point, when I started putting my names together, I did for a moment think of Michael J. Fox from Stuart Little. It is a very good voice performance. It really is.
It is.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
It's not one of the best performances of the year, though. But to your point, as far as criteria, no, I really didn't have any criteria. I will say my top 5 it's very loose. In actuality, I have more of a top 6 that I just can't seem to finalize. I have a top 3 that I'm pretty happy with, but my 4 through 6 is pretty loose. And I wouldn't be surprised if things change mid-conversation based on how things could potentially go. I do at least want to acknowledge that since our retrospective is 2 weeks away, we still have some homework that we're doing, some last-minute prep. And I do admittedly have a few blind spots from this year that I hope to catch up with before we get to the actual retrospective, which could potentially change this list in the near future. And ironically, most of my blind spots are ones that did garner Oscar nominations for acting in some ways.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so Boys Don't Cry. I have not seen that yet, sadly. The Cider House Rules, haven't seen that yet either. The End of the Affair, which I know Julianne Moore was nominated for, haven't seen that. I think there's another big one that I'm blanking on. Hold on, I have the list in front of me. Did I? Tumbleweeds, the Gavin O'Connor film. Janet McTeer was nominated for that. I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, that's a blind spot for me as well. That's one I plan on catching up with here pretty soon.
Yeah, but I at least wanted to acknowledge that there are performances here that maybe they'd crack my top 5. I don't know. But they aren't necessarily movies I felt like I wanted to prioritize. Mostly because I know the reputation of something like the Cider House Rules. I know what kind of reputation that movie has amongst our film critic colleagues, that it's maybe not necessarily one I should prioritize when I only have 2 weeks left, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe this is a nice transition to talk about the nominations at the 72nd annual Academy Awards, because I feel like in many ways they're not a reflection of the quality of the year itself. So I at least wanted to acknowledge that there are some blind spots here that did get some awards buzz, but there are other performances I'm going to be highlighting instead.
I mean, honestly, I don't see these Oscar nominations as some sort of an outlier. I do agree that it's not necessarily indicative of the overall quality of the year, but I think you could say that for most years with the Academy. I mean, when I look at the list of who's nominated and who's left off, there's a lot to be desired in most years for me.
You know, that's a good point. There always is. I feel like you can say that about every year. It's easy to pinpoint that same conversation to a year like this, 1999, when you have such a retroactive negativity now surrounding its Best Picture winner. Like when something like that happens, it tends to, I guess, heighten what they got wrong at the time. Yeah. And of course, I'm speaking of American Beauty, which I think you and I can openly admit, not going to be in our top 20s for the year of 1999, right?
No, yeah, not going to be in my top 20. I don't know if I even loved that film at the time, but when it came out, I was on the verge of going to high school. So it's not a movie that would have resonated with me anyway, especially as I was on the verge of starting to formulate my identity around film and being a cinephile. American Beauty was not on my radar. And even when I did catch up with it a few years later, it wasn't something that registered with me, perhaps like it did for a lot of other people. Kevin Spacey's performance was really great. I'm certainly not going to sit here and defend the man or that performance at this point in time, but
it's an entertaining performance. I could understand
why people gravitated toward the performance.
It was different. It was once again the loudest thing in the room. And that was what the Academy gravitated towards because it was a new kind of movie. And if anything, the existence of that movie and what you can do with very artful domestic contemporary dramas did kind of influence future movies to do it better. So there was a bit of a trendsetter there. I admittedly did love American Beauty when I first saw it. It wasn't in 1999. I think I first saw it maybe like in 2006 or 2007 or something like that. And I did love it. But I think I mostly loved it because of the vibe. I didn't really understand what it was going for. Later in life, I realized it wasn't really going for all that much. In a way, it's kind of a very artful and sophisticated version of American Pie. in kind of a, like, I think it's a pretty entertaining movie at times. I laugh a lot during Kevin Spacey's outbursts, but I don't really take much meaning from the movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's again, and maybe it's because I watched it at a time when I was still formulating my identity in a lot of ways, but I've never really loved the film, but I do understand the appeal, especially at the time before we found out about Kevin Spacey, his performance. I don't blame anyone. Again, when we're talking about, separating art from the artist, why people would love that performance. I think that is very fair when you're separating those things.
I agree.
However, and look, to be fair to the Academy, I think there are some incredibly inspired nominations here that I do really admire.
I have a few of them in my top 5. I'll simply say that.
There is at least one for me.
Okay.
Perhaps two. But to your point, and I guess maybe this is a transition for me to talk about my real criteria.
Okay.
Given my facetiousness earlier. I'm with you in the sense that I have 8 performances here that I have struggled to narrow down. This one was admittedly a little bit difficult for me in terms of finding the 5, because there are going to be 3 on the cutting room floor for me here that I might lose sleep over, to be perfectly honest, because I think they're really, really great. The 5 that I ended up going with, I obviously love, so I'm not going to feel guilty about that. But the 3 that I have following, I'll just put it out there now. I do believe these are top 5 performances, but math is what it is.
Well, this could be one of those cases, and I might even do this depending on how your top 5 reveals itself. I might make some changes just to avoid crossover. I think we do have some crossover here. At least one. I think there's one here that actually, I take it back. I think there's at least two we're going to have in our top fives. But if we get to a certain point where we start getting more crossover, I might shift some of these to make room for those that maybe you won't have, just to add some variety and to feel like we are at least giving proper love to these performances. If, let's say, I have it and you don't, or maybe you have it and I don't, that way they're at least represented on someone's list, and I'll be happy with that.
No, that's perfectly fair. I think I like that a lot. I'm curious because I do think, just looking at my 5 here, that we will have at least two crossover, but maybe not. Again, there's quite a few here that there's some great performances from 1999.
Absolutely.
For sure. Some legendary performances. So I could see us having 2 at the very least. We'll see where it goes from there. Okay. With all that laid out, let's go ahead and jump into this. Brendan, what do you have at number 5?
I hate to be the one to have to kickstart this because I'm the one that wants to make shifts mid-conversation, and I'm the one that has to start.
Do you want me to go first?
No, I'll go first. This is our normal rhythm, so I'll go ahead and go first. You know what? I'm going to go with a very unorthodox pick for my number 5. I don't think this is going to be in your top 5. I'm going with, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, Wei Minze from Not One Less. The Zhang Yimou
I kind of wondered if you were going to go here, given your Letterboxd comments. This is a great honorable mention for me.
Okay. At least we get to already start off with some variety that this isn't quite in your top 5. And the reason I wrestled with this one was because I think there are other performances that might be better than hers in totality that I'm leaving off my 5, but she might have my favorite acting moment of the year 1999. And that comes in the form of really the final 15 minutes, which are honestly among some of the greatest things I've seen in any movie. Really turning this into something that reminded me so much of what made movies by Vittorio De Sica, for instance, so gratifying. This is a movie that reminded me so much in its final minutes. It reminded me so much of the likes of Bicycle Thieves or Padre Panchali, the Satyajit Ray film. And the fact that it was made in a similar way by casting non-actors who really are people that actually fit the character types that they're also playing. So there is kind of a docudrama aspect to this movie. And none of these people on screen are experienced as actors. And you can kind of sense that inexperience for much of the runtime. And by the end, when Wei Minze breaks down on this television broadcast, trying to find this lost child of hers in the city, and for context, she is a substitute teacher in rural China, and one of her students goes missing in the city.
And she's also a child. Let's put that out.
She is 13 years old. Yes. And it really it's a movie that very eloquently examines the economic landscape of rural versus urban China and how sometimes the rural side of things are very ignorantly forgotten about and ignored very rudely sometimes. And the way she reflects that pain, asking for this child to come back if he is watching this broadcast, broke me down. Absolutely broke me down. So that singular moment is why she's in my top 5. I was astounded when I saw that. And I think that emotionality carries through even as the end credits roll. That reuniting of sorts that happens at the end and how optimistic that it is. It's a beautiful moment. It's one of the most beautiful things I saw in any movie from this particular year. And she's a big reason for that. So the fact that her inexperience made that sing as loudly as it does, it's amazing. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, I briefly noted this at the end of last week. We didn't really talk about it in depth, but it's why when I mentioned that we might not do a review for the new Netflix film Night Always Comes with Vanessa Kirby, I don't always like comparison because I think it can unfairly detract from the nuances of a film. Because look, Night Always Comes is not trying to be Bicycle Thieves. I don't think it's aiming to be the next classic.
Yeah. It's clearly inspired by that, but it's not aiming for that.
And here's the thing, when the bar is Bicycle Thieves or Not One Less or Man Push Cart. Those are films that are tackling a very, very similar thing thematically and even narratively. That's the bar, and those are the wheels that are spinning in my head when I'm watching Night Always Comes. I'm like, this is garbage.
This ain't gonna work. This doesn't work. Yeah,
it just doesn't work. Not One Less certainly being one of those films, not just because I've seen it recently, but to your point, it's a greatness as well. It's a really, really great movie dealing with the economics of rural China, and it is unbelievable. It's very, very good, and it's centered with a great performance that fits wonderfully into those non-professional actor canons.
Yeah,
when you're working with neo-realist documentary-like movies, as this one is.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. Really, really good stuff there.
Hard to believe this man, Zhang Yimou, would then go on to direct Hero and House of Flying Daggers and Curse of the Golden Flower.
It is so different from the rest of his movies that would follow. Yeah, it's crazy.
The small amount of movies of his I've seen, I've loved almost all of them. This is a filmmaker I really have to dive more into.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, Wei Minze is so good in this movie.
Okay, so that is an interesting pick for your number 5, because mine, while a different performance, thematically and structurally similar. So for my number 5 here, I am going with, and forgive me, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but Arata Iru from Hirokazu Koreeda's Afterlife.
Oh, this is still a blind spot for me, unfortunately.
And my goodness, do I love this movie. I already love Koreeda, and then every time I watch one of his movies, I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like every time. It's
I think a lot of people hold this in high regard to the point that many people consider it to be maybe his best movie, from what I understand.
It's up there. It is up there for sure. It's really, really, really good. The basic premise of the movie is that it centers around a group of 4 or 5 people that act as these guides, I guess. When people die, they go to what looks like this school. And these guides, they talk to the group of newly dead people, I guess, that are in this purgatory state. And they talk to them about their lives. And the whole idea, they have 1 week to come up with a memory that they cherish. And then these guides, they get together and they film it for them. And they put it on video. And this is the memory that once they watch the video, once they watch the recreation of it, they take that into the afterlife. And that's where they spend eternity.
Oh, this sounds like my kind of movie. This sounds like my kind of movie.
You watch this, and the first thing that came to mind immediately, not to get into too much of a rabbit hole here, you immediately get why Kogonada loves this film. After Yang is all over this movie.
I mean, what you described there sounded like a combination of After Yang as well as. Remember that movie 9 Days? I think it was called.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like a fusion of
a little bit
those
like
two.
that.
Yeah. But the fact that both of these movies that you're highlighting have the word after in it, probably not accidental.
Yes. And I actually did go back and I looked for interviews, and Kogonada talked about this film a lot, actually.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but that film After Yang is very much inspired by this in the greatest ways. After Yang still becomes its own thing in the end, but you absolutely see the inspirations. As for Arata Iru's performance, so he is one of our central protagonists. He is one of these guides. And I don't want to get into too many spoilers, especially since Brendan has not seen this movie. But there's an incredible irony. There's a profound irony that takes place with this character, Takashi, that is stunning. But because this is Hirokazu Koreeda, it plays out very similarly to what we were just talking about with Not One Less. in the sense that it is born from these neo-realistic documentary-like roots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible how the film is able to capture this neo-realism despite the fact that it takes place in a heaven like purgatory. It is unreal. Only Hirokazu Koreeda could get away with that.
This sounds like my kind of movie. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but this is absolutely one I will see before we actually do our retrospective. It absolutely will be.
Stunning. It is really, really great. And as always in a Koreeda film, it is understated. There's a spiritual aura to it that I deeply, deeply love. It's a lot of it is in the facial tics. It's in the stoicism of Avery's performance, and I absolutely love it. It actually thematically very similar to what we were just talking about, with Not One Less.
It's kind of interesting that one of Koreeda's earliest films kind of has this like high concept to it. And usually when filmmakers first start out and then they evolve and get a bit more bold and they really hone in their craft, that's usually when those high concepts come out. But Hirokazu Koreeda is kind of going the opposite direction. One of his earliest films is very high concept, and things have become a bit more, I guess, domesticated as time has gone on. But I do know a lot of people hold this one in high regard. Some claim it to be his best movie. And I cannot wait to see this one.
It's up there. It's very, very much in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people say this and Shoplifters seem to be the consensus for many people.
After seeing this film, I go back and forth because I love so many of his movies, but I do think it might come down to those two. I might be in that camp for sure.
I know you're also a huge defender of Nobody Knows, as well as Like Father, Like Son.
Yep. Huge fans of those movies. Nobody Knows was my favorite film initially of its year.
2005? Or 2005, that's when it was.
2005, okay, 2005. Love that movie. Deeply, deeply love that movie. Yeah, I mean, it probably comes down to those four. And maybe it's because I'm so fresh on it that this is top of mind, but Shoplifters, Afterlife, I think it might be those two. Either way, it's fantastic. It is, without question, one of his best movies, though.
It's awesome. Can't wait to see it.
A film that we'll probably talk more about once we get to 1999. And a really great central performance. And even though Arata Iru would go on to do a whole bunch of film and television, this was his first film performance. So he was brand new to acting at the time of this film. And so it gives it a little bit of that non-professional acty kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even though he would become a professional actor, his greenness, I think, serves this film very well, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
All right, number 4. What do you got?
Number 4, I'm going to shift this one to number 4 because I think this is one that you may have in your top 5. So it might be an opportunity for us to talk about it together. My number 4 is not an Oscar-nominated performance, but it was an award-winning performance from the year 1999. It specifically won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm going with Emily Duquesne, I believe I'm pronouncing her name right, for Rosetta. Which, like I said, won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival the year that it came out.
Also on my number 4.
Perfect.
Not
I timed
even just
that right.
on my list, at my number 4 as well.
Let's talk about it. It's a very bittersweet pick. Emily Duquesne is no longer with us. She passed away not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the exact year. What I love so much about this performance, and I'll let you chime in, is that even though this being, I believe it's a French or Belgian film, it's one of the two, but I know Emily Duquesne is a Belgian actress. Despite it not being an American film, it is one of the most accurate depictions of corporate America that I think I've ever seen. And I think the way that Duquesne's performance taps into the desperation of trying to find a job, essentially. She does some ugly things, some distasteful things, and yet you never lose that sense of pity for her because she is still rightfully looking after certain people, even though she's also being selfish in a way that puts other people's jobs at risk. But you get it. You absolutely get it. I love performances that make you sympathize with people that if you saw them on the street, you wouldn't necessarily sympathize with them. And I think she tackles that very gracefully. And it all comes crumbling down in a moment at the end that, similar to Wei Minzi for Not One Less, there's a very similar breakdown of sorts at the end of Rosetta, but it means something very different tonally. To see a character like this try to hold back whatever is emotionally weighing her down and to just find herself at such a breaking point that she has to let that all out. Absolute catharsis that I loved. And I think it is one of the best performances of the year.
Yeah, I love this performance as well. To answer your questions, this is a Belgium and France co-production.
Okay.
And she passed away earlier this year in March to cancer, which is very sad.
I knew it was recent. I didn't know it was that recent.
Yeah,
wow.
Earlier this year. She was only 43, which is way too young.
I agree.
It is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Absolutely heartbreaking to hear that. But I agree with you. Her performance, and I believe she was just 18 years old at the time when she won for Best Actress at Cannes. It is stunning. And it's incredible because it somewhat tethers to Afterlife and Not One Less thematically speaking. There is this social realism to this film, but the performance is so very different from the previous two we just talked about.
Yeah.
Given her fierceness, this raw emotion that bursts out of her in so many of these scenes, there's this angst, this bitterness that just she cannot contain, and how that rubs up against her needing to try to find a job in order to keep a job. And part of her struggling to keep a job is a direct result of this fierceness. That opening scene is incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good. But to your point, like how it transitions into this catharsis by the end is really incredible. So despite the neo-realism of it or the economic struggles of it, and I think the film does such a great job of building the urgency of the character and why she acts the way that she does, and the physicality within Decane's performance, how that comes out is really incredible. She conveys that with an incredible vigor.
It's a very volatile performance. That's the best word I can describe for it.
Yeah, it's great. I do not blame Cannes at all for that win. It is disheartening that it didn't translate to the Oscars, but I do think this is a performance that, through the lens of 2025, like today's Academy, which is obviously very, very different.
This would get in. This could get in. Yeah,
100%.
This was not a 1999 awards-worthy performance from the Academy's perspective. It just wasn't.
Nope.
Maybe awards-worthy is the wrong way. But not if they're going to nominate The Cider House Rules and American Beauty more times than not.
I have thoughts on all of that too, by the way. I didn't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole. Maybe we can get to that at the end.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, I do think this is a performance like we've seen several times in recent years. Anatomy of a Fall comes to mind for sure. This is a very similar energy that you get from Anatomy of a Fall you get with this performance. I 1000% believe this new version of the Academy would nominate this performance. I totally believe that.
I agree.
And it's really great. All right, so that is number 4 for both of us. So back to you. What do you have at number 3?
So my number 3, I guess, somewhat of a companion piece of sorts with our discussion of Emily Decane, more so in the fact that it kind of serves as a tribute to an artist that we lost this year. And, JD, we didn't get the chance to talk about Terrence Stamp that much. Is this also your number 3?
This is also my number 3. Yeah, that is wild.
We're on a roll. Terrence Stamp for Steven Soderbergh's The Limey. Man, maybe I shouldn't have gone first. Could have changed things up a little bit.
That's just so funny. We joke about Brendan and I sharing the same brain. This is so quintessential. We did not discuss this at all before.
We did not. No. We're getting lucky
right here.
We're getting lucky here.
Wow.
But
okay.
yeah, let's talk about Terrence Stamp. Rest in peace to Terrence Stamp. He died not too long ago as we're recording this. And like I said, we didn't really get much of a chance to honor him on the podcast after he passed. So in some ways, us including it here is almost like that tribute to finally talk about his unfortunate passing. But this is certainly one of his best performances that we've seen in a movie that is maybe one of the most experimental things Steven Soderbergh has ever done. The movie is absolutely a vibe. It kind of reminds me a little bit of something like Inherent Vice, just the fact that it has this loose haziness to it. And I'm not sure if the movie would work if not for a performance that's able to find some type of emotional center. But somehow Terrence Stamp finds that. It's a very sorrowful performance, and he makes the movie into something that probably wouldn't have been there had it not been for that performance. And a great performance, a very difficult performance rather, is one that is able to anchor a movie in a certain way and turn it into something that may not have existed otherwise. And he, in some ways, he's almost like directing the movie. I almost feel like I have to credit him as a co-director for this movie, given how much he directs the emotional trajectory of this movie, because it is such a strange vibe of a movie that's not really concerned with plot or the way its narrative unfolds. It almost feels like it's told out of order. And somehow Terrence Stamp is able to bring it all in. And you absolutely feel something for him, and you still feel it by the time the movie ends. Very difficult task, and I think he succeeds wonderfully at it. He is a talent that we're going to miss dearly.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And it's fascinating that despite his lengthy career, even up at that point in 1999, that he's able to have this career redefining role. 1999 was actually a big year for him. I think he was in 4 different movies that year, including Phantom Menace, which came out that same year.
That's right.
But him as this aging, vengeful presence in this awesome Steven Soderbergh film that I think is extremely underrated. It's interesting.
Yeah.
We've done Steven Soderbergh retrospectives on this show, and I feel like we need to go back and re-edit some of those conversations to talk about this film a little bit more, because
it is secretly one of his best movies.
Upon a rewatch, I think it is much better than I've ever given it credit for. And I've always been a fan of this film, but on this rewatch, and perhaps it's the Terrence Stamp of it all. That certainly is a lot of it. I think the fragmented editing of the film is really quite great, and I think it complements Stamp's performance in this remarkable way that gives it this haunting feeling that you absolutely get in the performance. Like, he's able to demonstrate this rugged vigor, this person who clearly is formidable in his own way, but he's also dealing with a lot of inner turmoil, and that dichotomy in the performance is staggering. It's really, really fantastic, and easily one of his best performances, hands down, and one that should have gotten more notoriety that year. 100%.
I agree.
Absolutely,
I agree. Yeah, the way he carries this thing, it's mystifying. It absolutely is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. All right, what do you got at number 2?
Number 2, I'll be a bit brief with, because I don't think you've seen this movie yet, so I don't want to talk too much about it, although ironically, it's not necessarily a movie I would say you have to prioritize to see just before the retrospective. This one was nominated for an Oscar. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. My number 2 is Samantha Morton for Woody Allen's Sweet and Lowdown.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you seen this one yet?
I have not, no.
Okay. Movie itself it's pretty good. I think it meanders a little bit too much to find enough of a center to really hone in on something. But there are 2 things about it that work for me, which is why I was ultimately positive on the movie I think I gave it like 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd or something like that. But the movie is about a guitarist, a gypsy jazz guitarist in the 1930s, and I love that genre of music. He idolizes Django Reinhardt, and it's also a mockumentary of sorts. It frames itself as a true story, but it's actually not. So I love the world that it depicts. So that's already one reason why I was kind of into the movie. The other reason being Samantha Morton's performance. She plays a sort of love interest for the main character of Ray, played by Sean Penn. He pursues her. He kind of takes advantage of her. He's kind of an asshole to her. This is a performance where Samantha Morton doesn't say a single word. She plays a mute character. And in a way, that might sound a bit cringy because it is a very gimmicky performance, and it is knowingly a gimmicky performance. But man, when an actor knows how to sell that gimmick and just do something with their eyes, oh my goodness, I could not take my eyes off of her. No pun intended. It is one of the most mystifying things I have seen, not just from her, but from any performance from this year or even in any year. Like I said, she doesn't say a single word. She communicates through not even gestures. She just communicates through eye contact. It is devastating stuff. She's not in the movie a ton, but man, every smile, every frown, every movement of where her face is looking, it kind of goes back to that conversation we had last week, JD, when we talked about the movie White God and how here we have canines giving legit performances where we actually feel like we have a sense of what they're saying with each other. We feel like there's dialogue there. The same can be said about her performance here. It's a spoken performance without being a spoken performance, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Takes a lot of skill. Really incredible stuff. This was actually a very inspired nomination for the Academy, I think. And maybe it was because it is such a gimmicky performance. That's probably what they latched onto. But it is also a very inspired pick because it is a genuinely great performance as well.
Yeah, I probably will catch up with this. I'm a big fan of Samantha Morton. I know her career hasn't been as prolific as a lot of other actresses, but my goodness, especially at that time, the late 90s through the early to mid 2000s, she was on something during that time. I have no doubt that what she does in Sweet and Low Down is Oscar worthy, and I am very excited to catch up with that film just to see her performance. But in 2002, when we did that retrospective, I talked about her quite a bit when I had both In America and Morvern Keller on my list. And her performance in Morvern Keller especially is easily one of the best of that year. Not to mention Minority Report.
I was just going to say.
I know you love, a lot of people love a lot more than I do.
We talked about Terrence Stamp, having a great year in 1999. Samantha Morton had a great year in 2002.
Absolutely. So I have no doubt that she's really great in Sweet and Low Down. I'm a big fan of her work, especially at that time. So I do want to catch up with that at some point before we get to the retrospective for sure. My number 2 is a very conventional pick, but there's a reason that I'm going with it here. And I would love to go with something more hipster and maybe pick an outlier or performance that's under discussed.
Hey, whatever speaks to you, man.
And this is from a film full of great performances. In fact, I think there's an argument that its lead actress really should be on this list. In fact, she is one of those just on the outside for me. I mentioned earlier that I do feel is a top 5 performance, but math is what it is.
Sure.
However, I go back to the challenges and the difficulties that it is to have a great child performance. It's not easy to get great child performances. When we do see them, they're often really special and unique. And I don't know what it was about Haley Joel Osment in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, but he gives some of the best, not even some. I'm just going to go ahead and say, I think he gives 2 of the very best I think you could have them in a top 3, honestly. Child performances of all time.
Oh yeah.
Of all time.
If you were to do a top 10 child performances ever, he might even have like 3 of them.
And 3, and they might all be at the top 5.
Yeah.
Like, it is unbelievable how good he was at that age, which I think is hysterical to think about who he is now, where he's just having a ball and having fun, and he's not taking himself seriously in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I know, right?
He could have just went on to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis, and he just chose not to. He's like, I don't. I gave 3 of the best child performances ever, and I'm just going to leave it. That's my legacy. I can't outdo it.
I'm good.
And look, that's perfectly fine. I respect
and it's funny,
that.
Like you see him pop up in Happy Gilmore 2, and you're like, I still see an amazing actor out of this guy.
He's still in there a little bit.
Yeah.
I do want to see someone cast him and try to get that out of him again at some point. I know that he's not taking himself seriously. He's just having fun, and that's fine.
Sure.
He can do Happy Gilmore 2s all day long. I'm okay with that. But my God, what he did in AI is unbelievably profound. And what he does in The Sixth Sense is equally astonishing, especially given the premise of that film and some of the dialogue that he has to convey. I see dead people on paper. That could have easily have come off tacky and cringe.
It could have been so silly.
It could have been so silly. And look, in the hands of a lot of other child performers, not to denigrate them by any stretch of the imagination, but there are a lot of other performances that probably would have struggled to make that work the way that he did. But it's much more than just that iconic line of dialogue. It's so many of the smaller moments of vulnerability in that film that are really, really great and fuse so well with Bruce Willis's performance and what we see with Toni Collette as well. Their dynamic in the film is just astonishing, absolutely terrific. And like in a lot of ways, I wanted to go with Toni Collette here, and I get why a lot of people would. But there's something so special and unique, which is also why I have him high on this list at number 2 for me, because I do think we're talking about one of the best child actors ever. And this is one of his best performances alongside AI. So when you're talking about 2 of the very best child performances to ever hit the silver screen, I couldn't have that low on this list, let alone not be on the list, which is why it sits here at number 2 as conventionally as it is. But it should be. It's a performance that has earned every single ounce of its legacy.
It's top 10 for me, just misses my top 5. And when I was first thinking of The Sixth Sense for this list, my immediate thought did go to Toni Collette. But at the same time, something we always talk about when praising performances is who had the more difficult job. And while I think Toni Collette's performance, especially in those final minutes, kind of becomes the emotional anchor for the movie, at the same time, I think Haley Joel Osment has the harder task, because he's the one that has to sell this material and not goof it up and not make it silly, to your point.
Yes.
Because the material itself is it's kind of begging for silliness in a way, which is kind of M. Night Shyamalan's thing. But to have these performances, especially from Haley Joel Osment, deliver with such sincerity, that is not an easy thing to do and to make you believe it. And I think he had the harder job because of that.
No, I agree. And especially because he is a kid, there is an element of perhaps wanting some of that to slide through. And maybe that would have worked to some degree, because we understand the context that he is a little kid, but he grounds those supernatural elements in a way that is it's incredibly poignant and grounded. There's a maturity and an emotional intelligence to that performance that you rarely, if ever, see out of a child actor. And again, I'm not trying to necessarily say that other child actors are the worst, or that Jacob Tremblay couldn't do this. What he does in Room is also incredible.
I agree.
Like there's some great child performances each and every year, but I do think what Haley Joel Osment does in The Sixth Sense, and sorry to keep bringing up AI, but those two in particular,
amazing.
There are not many that beat those ever, any timeline. I don't care what era you're talking about. And so I had to have this high on my list. It's at number 2.
Yeah, it's a great performance, and it might be a obvious pick, but in many cases, the obvious pick is also the right pick.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed with it. So
yeah,
with that,
we've had a few out of the box picks on our list already. I think you owe it to yourself to at least include something that's well known, because it's well known for a reason.
Yeah, would have probably been my vote for that category. In fact, I can say quite confidently it would have been my vote for that category, but there is one other nominated that I think would have been equally deserving.
For Best Supporting Actor specifically. Yeah. Looking at the list there, I certainly would have still been happy for Tom Cruise in Magnolia.
Or that's Michael the other one that I was kind of alluding to. I guess we can give it away since it's not. You said you don't have any Magnolia picks in your top 5.
I don't.
Like if Tom Cruise would have won, I would have been very much okay with that as well. Jude Law, I think, is quite great. Probably number 3 for me on this list, but he's also very, very good.
Yeah.
I do like Michael Clark Duncan in The Green Mile.
I like him
about that film, but
I like him a lot in that movie. There's a messiness to The Green Mile that I don't always love. There's no reason for that movie to be 17 hours long. That's a mini series waiting to happen. But
I just think it's hilarious, and this is so very much the Academy that the winner of that crop of 5 is by far the worst one. Like, not even close.
I know.
And God love Michael Caine. I love Michael Caine, but that performance, I'm sorry, does not top any of the other 4. Like, not even close.
Yeah. Well, I'm also looking at another category that ties into my number 1 pick that I might be able to say the same thing about. That the one who won may have been the worst of the 5.
Okay.
Because my number 1 is also an Oscar nominee from this year.
Same. Mine is also Oscar nominated.
Is yours male?
Yep.
Best leading actor, that category?
Yep.
Are we both talking about Richard Farnsworth in The Straight Story?
Yes, we are. So we do have 3 crossover. How about that?
Not even just 3 crossover. In the exact same slots, mind you.
Same spots. Wow. Yeah. Who would have guessed? That is unbelievable.
Well, not me, apparently.
I mean, as far as these things happening, this has got to be one of the best ones. I don't know. I mean, when we did our 2004 retrospective, our top 5 was very close, but it wasn't in the exact same order. To have 3 in the exact same spots in a 5.
And to think of it too this way, JD, our biggest outliers that we didn't cross over on, most of that happened because you picked one that I hadn't seen yet, or I picked one that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
So who's to say that it could have even been more of a crossover?
Yeah, exactly. That is really, really funny. And I have no doubt that when we see those blind spots, our list may not change. I don't know, but we'll probably both be like, okay, yeah, I definitely see what they were talking about.
There's definitely something a bit premature with this list as of right now, given some of the homework we still want to do in the 2 weeks leading up to our retrospective. I will say this, I don't foresee Richard Farnsworth falling out of number 1 for me. The second we decided on this topic, my first thought was, well, Richard Farnsworth is going to be my pick for number 1. Like, that was pretty much instantaneous.
Same. Yeah.
Okay.
I did not have to wrestle with that one as much.
Very much a legacy performance. In a way, he was sort of channeling himself as Alvin Straight. I think what makes this performance work so well, it's not just how great this movie. This is one of David Lynch's best movies. It absolutely is.
It is so good.
Maybe the best maybe the best non-animated Disney movie ever made. It's very much in the tradition of what Disney used to make back in the 60s and 50s, like Old Yeller, for instance. It kind of has that old American kind of feel to it that's just so charming. And I love how he captures that in a way that still feels very much like a David Lynch movie. Somehow he's able to have his cake and eat it too. But Richard Farnsworth as Alvin Straight giving what is essentially the type of performance that you and I gravitate towards, the internalized performance, the one that's not about emotional expression. If anything, he is the softest man in the room. He's the quietest man in the room. And that makes him the loudest for us because that's what we gravitate towards. Maybe there's a bit more of an emotional catharsis when you think of the scene at the bar where he kind of goes through some of his war history or, of course, the reunion at the end with his brother played by Harry Dean Stanton.
God. What a moment. What a moment in that movie. Harry Dean Stanton also to come back to play the brother.
You came here in that?
Just so good.
What a line.
Whoever thought of that deserves so many raises. I hope they got it.
This is why casting should absolutely be an awards-worthy activity. Absolutely. 100%. This is a great example of that. I mean, also the fact that Richard Farnsworth in real life, he died of prostate cancer as this movie was being released, not too long after this movie was being released. And for what I understand, he was sort of keeping that private while this movie was being made. In fact, he had some struggles while filming this movie because of him dealing with the condition of prostate cancer. And in a way, like being very cryptic about that, but still wanting to get the work done, trying to overcome that obstacle. That seems like a very Alvin Straight thing to do, right? So like the realism of that, the fact that there's almost like this line blurring between reality and fiction, not fiction, it's a true story, but reality and movie reality, I think is what makes this performance so honest and authentic. It was always my number one. The second we thought about this topic, this was always going to be my number one.
Yeah, same. I'm completely with you. And it is one of those great performances that I use as the quintessential example of why I prefer these performances to the flashier, louder ones that the Academy typically loves to award.
Yeah.
I just think there's so much more nuance and depth to these performances that are about the warmth and quiet resolve. There's so much to it that is restrained and it is gentle. And it's a film that requires a little bit of patience, but there's so much rewarding to how the film ends as a result of that process.
Yeah.
And it is incredible. Like the way Farnsworth conveys that in the character and how like why this pursuit matters to him. And there's some great moments that David Lynch gives us, to remind us of why he's on this journey.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the great warm performances that you'll ever see in one of David Lynch's best movies, hands down. Yeah. This should have won the Oscar for Best Actor. I'm glad that it at least got nominated. I do have to give the Academy, especially the 1999 Academy, to give them some credit because I could have seen them overlooking this for sure. The fact that it was even nominated is inspired, but I do think it is easily one of the best of that crop. And for me, the best performance of the year.
I agree.
I absolutely love the humanity in it.
Yeah, I agree. Regarding Best Actor, so obviously Kevin Spacey won for American Beauty, and I can understand why a performance like that would win in 1999. It was the loudest performance, and I do think it's not a bad performance. It's a very funny performance. I think it actually works better as a comedic performance than it does a dramatic performance. The comedic bits of that movie are still successful to me, but it doesn't really go much beyond that for me. But when I look at some of the other nominees, admittedly, I haven't seen The Hurricane yet. Denzel Washington. I know we talked about that a little bit when we talked about Denzel last week. So that's still a blind spot for me. Sean Penn is good in Sweet and Lowdown. I wouldn't say it's one of his best performances. It's kind of a one-note performance, if I'm being honest. But I will say where I will give the Academy credit and where this category specifically doesn't make me too angry, it's the fact that you have both Richard Farnsworth and Russell Crowe nominated here. Russell Crowe was the one I was trying to push for in my top 5. That's now my number 6. I have said that I think this might be his best performance, and it is kind of interesting that he finally won an award for this performance 2 years later for A Beautiful Mind, because it kind of is the same performance in a way. Like the mannerisms are so similar. He kind of recycled a lot of that.
And I'm sure a lot of voters felt as if they missed something with Russell Crowe. And again, I understand the allure of Kevin Spacey in American Beauty, so it might be less of a guilt thing, especially at the time they didn't know anything about Kevin Spacey, the person. But Russell Crowe wanting to reward him for The Insider, A Beautiful Mind, okay, fine movie, good performance, we'll just give him that instead. I could certainly see that being the case. We know that they like to do that sort of stuff.
Even though he won for Gladiator, right? So
that would have been the next year, right?
Yeah. So they gave him 2 course corrections because of how good he is in The Insider.
Or maybe, I mean, I think he's very deserving in the Gladiator anyway.
That's a better performance. I mean, of the 2 that he did win an Oscar for, Gladiator is the better performance. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. But that certainly could have been part of it. Is like, okay, we didn't give it to him in 99. We'll give it to him here. And Gladiator is certainly worthy of it, I think. So I'm perfectly fine with that. But I mean, if Russell Crowe would have won, and Farnsworth was again still kind of on the outside looking in,
I would have been okay with that.
It would, the sting would certainly be a lot less, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Russell Crowe in The Insider.
And I also love The Insider. I think that is my favorite Michael Mann film. So so like just seeing it be awarded in that way, if that were the case, I wouldn't push back on that.
Yeah. And as we're getting to honorable mentions, because you noted Crowe is your number 6, he is one of those just on the outside looking in for me as well. Because I noted that I had 3 that I was wrestling with. Yeah. The other 3 are Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense, as I mentioned, Russell Crowe, and Tom Cruise in Magnolia is the other one for me. Okay. So those 3 I very much wanted to be in this 5, but I figured, Tom Cruise has been talked about a lot generally. Same with Russell Crowe. Perhaps that's why I left them off. Really wanted to highlight DeCane and Orog because those performances are often overlooked when we're talking about 1999. So I did want to champion them here. So,
and I do think they are genuinely among the best, at least.
And I agree. I agree. That's not just a political maneuvering. I do think they're worthy of a top 5, as I noted. But I think those 3 again are top 5 caliber. Yeah. But math is what it is.
It is what it is. Are there any other performances we should quickly highlight as other honorable mentions? Because there were a lot here that didn't get really any awards love that I think should have been recognized in some way. If I look at how I were to potentially round out a top 10, I won't do a specific top 10 because some of them we've already talked about, but I was also hoping to push for Cecilia Roth in Almodovar's All About My Mother, one of the best performances I've seen in any of his movies. Jim Carrey, Man on the Moon, terrific performance. Nicolas Cage in Bringing Out the Dead, of course, a very different kind of, a very Nicolas Cage-like performance, but also a very different kind of Nicolas Cage-like performance. I'm also a big fan of Reese Witherspoon's performance in Election. I think that is a terrific form of comedic. It's a great comedic performance with a lot of subtext to it as well. In fact, I do want to highlight that regardless of how you feel about the year 1999, it was a really good year for comedy movies because comedies at that time were absolutely fearless. They were so fearless then. And you had great performances from the likes of Michelle Williams in the movie Dick, Kirsten Dunst in Drop Dead Gorgeous, Brendan Fraser in Blast from the Past. In some more serious comedies like Being John Malkovich, for instance, Cameron Diaz, absolutely unrecognizable in that movie. And while this movie isn't a comedy, the performance is very comedic, but the standout for me in The Talented Mr. Ripley was Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I think he also gives one of the best
well.
performances of 1999. So those are some of my honorable mentions there. I'm sure there are a lot more we can talk about. You could probably name every performance in Magnolia, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot. There are a lot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, generally, Magnolia, I do think it's a really great film, and you really could simply name them all. I think that is perfectly fair. Julianne Moore maybe being among the more notable for me outside of Cruise, but they're all great.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, you can rank them however you want. I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
Mm-hmm.
You honestly named most of them on my list. I also want to re-emphasize Jim Carrey for Man on the Moon. I know people give that film a little bit of a hard time. It wasn't the best reviewed film of that year. And I don't know if people equate it with 1999 in terms of, oh, this is one of the best years for cinema ever. And Jim Carrey and Man on the Moon are a part of that equation. But underratedly, I do think that performance should have been much more in the awards conversation than maybe it was. I don't really know.
I don't know either, but I know that movie seems to have aged pretty well. I feel like there's been more of an audience for that movie since its release, especially nowadays. I think it's a very interesting biopic.
And perhaps Julia can give us some more context and talk about that a little bit further next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think it is a really great performance. I love him in that movie. And I think the film itself is a little bit underrated as well.
I agree.
I want to shout out Matt Damon and Talented Mr. Ripley. Jude Law gets a lot of love because he's so much of the heartthrob of that film. And perhaps even Philip Seymour Hoffman. But that is one of Matt Damon's best performances. And we don't really look at Matt Damon as
sleazeball.
Well, that I was going to say, like, we don't really consider him as like one of the best actors of his generation. Like
Okay, gotcha.
You know, he's a great movie star and he's very charismatic on screen. Don't get me wrong, but we don't look at him as going, man, he's like Daniel Day-Lewis. He's one of the best to ever do it. But I do think him in that film, that's the closest I think he gets to that conversation. Like he was genuine. That is arguably his best performance. And I think it's because he's asked to go way outside of himself and how we usually see him performatively.
Yeah.
Really great there.
That's a good point.
A sleazeball there. Nick Cage, also want to highlight Ving Rhames from Bringing Out the Dead. He's awesome in that movie.
Oh, he's great in that. That's a good point.
Laura Belmont from The War Zone, I think, is worth highlighting. A very arduous film and a devastating performance, but one worth mentioning. I did see Denzel in The Hurricane, and you're not going to believe this, Brendan. He's really good in it.
Well, no shit.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? A couple
Denzel,
more.
Sorry to cut in, but Denzel Washington is the kind of performer that you can just include him in your top 5, even if you haven't seen the movie. Yeah. Even if you haven't seen it, it's like I can assume it's probably good enough to be in the top 5, right?
Denzel, he's incredible.
He's good at his job.
A couple more here real fast. Samuel L. Jackson in The Red Violin. I had to note on here because
I thought you were going to say Deep Blue Sea.
Or Deep Blue Sea. Because again, that's the performance that everyone thinks about when it comes to movies from 1999. And they should. Don't get me wrong.
One of the greatest surprise deaths I think I've seen in any movie.
Amazing. Amazing. One of the best deaths ever put to film, for sure. However, what a lot of other people may not realize is that he was in this film called The Red Violin, which, there was like 6 different countries involved with this movie, I think. It's a lot. It's a lot of movie. And he has a role in the last section of the film. But I wanted to bring it up because it is honestly one of his more understated performances. And we don't usually throw that qualifier out for Samuel L. Jackson. We love him because he is loud and boisterous and really fun on screen.
He says mother effer a lot.
Exactly. And we want him to say those things. But this is a perfect counterpoint to those kinds of flashier roles that we really love. This is incredible work, very, very good supporting performance. Again, he's not in the film a ton. It's really just in the last section of the film, but he's really good. Really good understated work from Samuel L. Jackson. And I've never heard him talk about this movie. And I want to hear him in an interview. I want someone to ask him how he got involved. If I interviewed him, that would be the first question I would ask him. How on earth did you get involved with this little Ford film called The Red Violin?
I wonder if anyone has ever asked him about that as of late. Probably not.
I don't know. Probably not. And I'm sure there's an answer out there somewhere on the internet. I haven't had a chance to Google that yet, but it's fascinating.
Sure.
And certainly wanted to highlight it. The last one I have on here, you noted it, but I have to bring it up because I have been on the record that I am not at all the biggest Cameron Diaz fan. I find her irksome. I don't love her on screen.
That's fair.
I don't think she just doesn't work for me. I'll just put it that way. A lot of other people love her. I don't find her charming or fun.
Yeah. I like her in certain things.
All that alluring.
Yeah, but not
so
everything.
there's not much about her that I like. And I generally find her in a lot of her movies. It keeps me disengaged. Nothing against her personally. I just don't love her as a performer. But that being said, she is really great in being John Malkovich. Like if we were doing a whole InSession Film Awards for 1999, hands down would be my winner for best surprise performance.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't even be close.
Apparently people would agree with that too for those who were working on set for that movie, because apparently she was going around like talking to people on set, cameramen, other people working behind the scenes. And I think it took a couple days for people to realize, oh, that's actually Cameron Diaz who's going to be in this movie. She was that unrecognizable. I think people on set thought she was just someone who came to visit the set and started asking questions.
Well, which is, yeah, she is really genuinely very, very good in that movie. And I don't know what it is about her performance, but all of those qualities that I tend to not love, she evaporated all of them. And I just fell in love with that character and fell in love with that performance. I honestly really, really love it. Genuinely love her in that film. And so I wanted to highlight it because I have been harsh and critical of her in the past. And, you know, and I've seen that film before. That's always been one of my favorite films that she's been in. But on this rewatch, she honestly became one of my favorite parts of that movie.
It's a tricky performance because given her character and what revelations that she comes to, given our current, sociopolitical landscape, there's a lot of timeliness to what her character finds herself in. But at the time in 1999, it was very easy to take those ideas and really turn them into a joke. And the movie kind of does that, at least at first. And she has to find a way to make it seem sincere and real. Without a performance like that, that's able to do that, it makes the film feel timely in a negative way. And somehow she's able to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I appreciate that.
I agree. So those are my honorable mentions. I know there's a lot that we left out that we didn't really have time to get into. We are going a little long here. So if you agree or disagree with our picks here, if there's anything we missed, of course, leave us a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can always email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com as well. All right, I just want to note real quick, for our reviews this week, we have at least 2, maybe 3. We are for sure going to be talking about the Chinese animated film Neza 2. I went to see that with my son Sam over the weekend, and I think he's going to join us for a little bit of that episode. But Brendan is not going to be there. I don't think he's had a chance to see it yet.
I have not.
So it is going to be me and Sharyar Chavla for that conversation.
Okay.
And I do look forward to getting into that. And again, a little bit of Sam. I think he'll be there at the beginning of it.
Okay.
And then we are also going to be talking about the Ethan Coen film Honey Don't, and Brendan is going to be joined by our own awards editor, Shadon Larkey. They're going to get together to talk about that movie. So we are for sure going to have those 2 reviews. I say maybe 3 because given the success of K-Pop Demon Hunters, which we did not review when it came out 2 months ago, but maybe we should. Maybe we should. Sam has now seen the movie God knows how many times. Also got to see it in theaters, which I haven't even had a chance to do. But I have seen the movie.
Can you believe that? Your son is now ahead of you when it comes to a certain movie.
He's seen that film more than me. He's also seen The Bad Guys 2 in theaters, and I haven't seen that film at all yet.
Wow.
And it's out on digital as of right now too. So
okay. Yeah, he's beating you at your own game.
He is beating me. I do think we should, even though we're late on it, I do think we should do K-Pop Demon Hunters because again, there's a real chance that is the front runner for best animated film at this point. And it also might have a nominee or 2 for best original song. That could be possible. So if it ends up being this awards player, I do think maybe we should give that one a go, even though we're late on it.
Yeah.
So we might give that one a go as well. If not this week, maybe next week. But I do want to get into that one at some point. So
okay.
With that said, speaking of Shadon, I know she's working on a new Chasing the Gold episode. Perhaps that'll come out this week. We will for sure have a new Women in Session episode at the end of the week. So you can be on the lookout for that. Always doing great work over there. With that said, am I forgetting anything, Brendan? I think we've covered everything here.
I think so. 1999 retrospective rearing its head pretty soon. But as you mentioned earlier, next week's show, as we do another prelude for that retrospective, going to be a really exciting one. Really looking forward to that.
Looking forward to it as well. All right. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast. Good boy. Good